Good afternoon. My name is Scott McCutcheon with Sovereign Studios. Welcome to episode 7 of my Yamaha Virago project. So today's should be a pretty fun day. We're going to put the rear wheel back on, and we're going to get the drive shaft put in. So that should make it look pretty cool as an actual motorcycle almost. It's got two fucking wheels, right? So that'll be real fun. We'll get that on and we'll look at doing the rear controls, maybe. Not quite sure on that one yet, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need to put the rear drive shaft back in, and that's this piece here. So you can see we went ahead and painted this earlier, and otherwise we're ready to go. So this is the rear axle. We'll pop that out, save it for later. So as you can see, it pretty much just slides up in there, and we'll mount it here and with the 4 bolts there, and then that will be what helps keep the rear wheel in place. You can see we can pop out that little window there and help get a good alignment for that drive shaft. Okay, so first things first, we'll pull this mounting bolt here. This is not the correct nut that went with this, but I'm missing the actual nut that went there. So we're going to use this one instead, since it's got the same thread pitch. And then you can see we have these four nuts here that also include these lock washers. So we'll need to pull those off the edge of the drive shaft before we can mount her up. Now obviously you can see that we dropped this pin out of here. That little guy slides right in there. But we'll worry about that when we get to putting the wheel on. And then for the most part, we should just be able to slide this guy in here. Now, well, that might actually make it way easier. If not totally correct. Right? Now that it's put in like that, slide this back in place. And there we go. So the quick solution here, make sure that this goes in place, and then we can put all these back on. Then of course you'll want to tighten everything down, and these are 14mm bolts right here. Okay, so the next step is going to be to get the rear wheel on, and then we will kind of go from there. So the rear wheel on the Virago obviously needs to accept the drive shaft, so that's really what this side is for. You can see the bearings are already still in place, the bearing in the drive gear, which will just seat right in there. And then this is the brake side, where you can see where we have the the rear brake shoe and all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and leave this on for the time being, and we can verify that this actually works. Because you can see how it kind of slides through like it is now, but if you push in the lever, obviously the brake shoes are keeping it from moving. So let's slide it in place. To do that, you'll see that we need to first get it in place on that end, but that we need to align this properly so that this swing arm here can keep the shoe mount in place, right? And then that this control lever will be able to mount in here going forward. So let's go ahead and pull these bolts out, since we don't need them in place while we're doing this. Right, and so time to get the rear wheel in. We're going to slide this piece spacer right in there. And then we'll go ahead and leave this in place while we put it in. I want to make sure that the gear on the inside seated properly with the gear in the drive shaft connector, just to make sure that everything, again, got seated properly. Now you can see how this kind of mounts like so. We'll go ahead and drop that bit in there. Oh man, so we are going to go ahead and, while we have it, we're going to get a little more grease on this guy. Now when we slide him in, we're going to want this guy to sit right in here, okay? Much like that. Drop this over here, crown nut here, and then once we tighten that guy down fully, we'll have the cotter pin that goes in there. I'm going to leave that on the ground right there for the time being. Now I'm under the assumption that a cotter pin goes here, but I don't think I have it. Either way, we tighten this down right here to lock the axle in place. And then this piece here is actually going to end up connecting to this actuator, brake actuator piece here. I'm not exactly certain how it worked. I assume it had some type of additional bracket or lever or something, so we'll have to fabricate something for that, to make sure that when you push in on the pedal here, right, that it pulls this in to actually actuate the brake. So we'll get that working here when we do rear controls. And that's pretty much the rear wheel. So as far as tightening everything up, there is supposed to be a cotter pin that goes into the axle right here, which I don't have. I seem to be missing. So for now I'm just going to leave this Allen key in it, just so that I remember that I'm supposed to have something there. I'll stop by Ace Hardware and grab that later. As far as everything else goes, we're going to want to tighten down this pinch bolt. That's a 12 millimeter bolt in there that we'll tighten down. And this pinch bolt is what primarily holds the axle in place. So you want to make sure it's pretty tight. Okay. And then over here, we have a 22 millimeter crown nut that we'll want to tighten down and make sure that it's in pretty good shape too. And then of course with this one, we need to make sure that we can slide our cotter pin in there. So we have the cotter pin for this side. We'll keep it like that and pop this cotter pin in place. Make sure that nut don't go nowhere. Okay, and then finally, make sure this guy gets tightened up. And there you go, rear wheel. Okay, so in order to mount this thing, it seems like it's actually supposed to be down here a little bit, to make sure that it doesn't bind against any of this nonsense here. So in order to move this linkage, we're going to have to loosen this up a little bit. We want to flip it around so that it's mounted kind of like this. So that way it'll be kind of flush with the linkage here. Make sure it just slides on easily, like so. And then you'll want to put the clamping bolt back in to make sure that this thing stays in place. And now we'll be able to fit the linkage up like that, one way or the other. Not exactly sure how that's going to work just yet, but it'll pretty much be like that. And now when you push in on that, it would pull this up and break the wheel. So, okay, we're in good shape then. Okay, so that about does it for episode 7 of the Virago project, getting the rear wheel back on. I feel like we're in pretty good shape here. The bike actually starting to look like a real bike now. It's got 2 wheels, got a motor, got a frame, got controls. It's starting to look legit. So hopefully in the next video we'll be able to put the rear controls together. I actually already have them. They're here, right here. So we'll go ahead and get these rear controls set up, so that we can make sure the back brake works, and we can make sure that the gear shifter works, and all that good stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Maybe check out my game on Steam, Ethereal Legends. And we'll catch up with you for the next time. Alright, thanks. See you then.